here's the thing. The videos for this album were horrendous. They were horrible videos. Real bland, vanilla shit. I didn't like that. Number two, the singles off this album, like, you know, the big ones that everybody remembers, like Not Enough and Can't Stop Loving, they didn't properly represent this album. This is a much darker album. And let me tell you something, this song, Crossing Over, fits in with that tone that they have going on, that grittier tone. And I'm actually so surprised that they didn't really sort of, you know, kind of go in with that. It certainly captured the mood of what was going on in the band at the time. But holy shit, Crossing Over is unbelievable. It really is. You know, if you need to hear it, just definitely look it up on YouTube. It is a must listen. If you do not have it, get it. Grab it, download it, whatever you got to do. It is phenomenal. Like I said, it's not on iTunes. You're not going to find it on Amazon. You're not going to find it on Spotify. You got to search for it. But it is definitely so worth getting into. It's got that real dark tone. Now, here's my question to you, Dave. If you had your way, where would you put it on the album?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
You know what? I love the outro to that song so much.
Right.
I think I might slot it last on the album.
But here's the thing. If you do that, I think you got to move Feeling, though. Because it's almost, I think that there needs to be a little more context.
I agree that you'd have to rearrange some songs on the album.
Yeah.
That outro, I mean, I don't know how anything else would follow.
I know, right. It's so epic.
Or maybe like halfway. I mean, because I still think of albums as side one and side two.
Right.
So maybe like halfway, you have it like halfway through the album and you end the first half of the album.
Right. That's what I was thinking. But
okay.
here's
right.
the other thing. Here's the other thing. Maybe extend the outro and really, you know what I mean? Because it's a nice, thick song. Like
it is, but you know what? I think the brilliance part of that is that the outro does not overstay its welcome.
Okay. All right. That's true. Now, here's the other thing we should mention with this album. Boy, the band was in bad shape. When they went on tour, they called it the Ambulance Tour because the band had a very aggressive touring schedule. They did 135 shows between January of 95 and November of 95. And these guys were burnt out. Ed's hip was killing him. Alex's neck was killing him. Ed was hobbling around on a cane. Alex had a neck brace. It was really sort of, I think, maligned, this album. That and the tension within the band. Dave, if you remember, we saw them April 26th of 1995 at Nassau Coliseum. We're also coming up on the 25th anniversary of that. It's hard to believe. Then we saw.
I am looking at the picture of us with the band.
Oh, Dave, can you do me a favor and take a photo of that and send it to me?
Oh, I don't know if I want you posting that on the internet.
Oh, yeah, no? Why? It's us with Van Halen.
No, I'm kidding, because we're a lot younger then than we are now.
No, that's, hey, look, I got more to lose from that than you do.
Yeah, but when I look at the picture, you could see, I mean, Ed is like leaning on a cane.
Yeah.
I mean, Alex is not wearing the neck brace. I think he only wore
he only wore while he played.
But I remember when we were waiting to meet the band, for the meet and greet and the photo op, and I remember their tour manager, what was his name, Scotty?
Yeah.
I remember
Scotty Ross.
Scotty Ross, right.
Mm-hmm.
I explicitly remember Scotty saying, "Don't shake Eddie's hand too hard, or I'm out of a job."
Right. I remember that.
I remember him saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, right? That's how fragile he
was. Very fragile. Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy.
We saw them again in Jones Beach in August. They played the 22nd, 23rd, and 25th. They ended the tour in Hawaii. Believe it or not, they took this tour to Tokyo. They took it to Europe. And in Europe, of course, remember, they pathetically opened for Bon Jovi, believe it or not. Balance showed that the band was really going through a tough time, and they were poorly managed at the time, and things went awry. Who knows what would have happened, because musically, man, there is some shit that they did on this album that is unbelievable and really forward-thinking. I don't know if they just needed a break or what it was, but,
yeah,
it's too bad.
The interesting part was, when we interview the engineer, he'll tell you, friction, there was no friction when they were making music, which is interesting because, you listen to some of these songs, you're like, wow, there's like a deep, dark undercurrent going on here, were these guys angry at something? So, it's kind of surprising that he's like, when they were making music, there were no issues. But obviously, as we said, there was stuff going on. But, maybe they were just professional enough that when they're in the studio making music, doing what they loved, that didn't get in the way. It was all the other BS that frustrated them and caused tension in the ranks.
Absolutely. But, I tell you, it really is kind of crazy if you think about it in terms of what this band went through. And, let me tell you something. This band has good bones. They really were unbelievable at this point. They were musically superior, and they were gelled together and perform unbelievably. But, it really is sad. It's unfortunate that they broke up here, because you never know what that next album could have been like. Because there's some real. This is almost like their Fair Warning in a way. Like it has sort of a grittier undertone, and there's some dark stuff here that ended up turning into some incredible music. Although it gave us a great album. I mean, it's a little unbalanced, I should say, but I think with a couple of tweaks, everything, all the stuff is there. I would have just snipped a few, three things out, fixed those lyrics in Amsterdam and taking those 3 tracks out, crossing over, and I think you got yourself one hell of a fucking album, that's for sure. Maybe even retitled it or something. But what would you call this album? Would you call it The Seventh Seal? Do you think that was a good title or no?
I really don't get too hung up.
Oh, you don't get into that. That's right. Yeah.
No, it's like it's interesting. People get hung up on what they call the album or the cover art.
Yep.
And these days, sadly, cover art doesn't mean a thing.
No,
not
today,
because you don't sit there looking at the album cover. You're listening to the, you're streaming the music on your phone. So, cover art is literally becoming a lost art, which makes me sad, unfortunately. But the cover art wasn't horrible. It wasn't the worst thing.
No, not at all.
They were going for some kind of concept with this album, with the cover art, with the music. They were trying to make a statement.
Yeah.
It was something with a little more meat than For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I do remember when For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge came out, you said, listen, this is the album they're going to make for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was only, it was the live album, and then there was the studio album after that.
Right.
Which this album was a little more serious. I think it had a little more meat to it.
Mm-hmm.
It was still a rocker album.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, it was basically the same kind of album.
Yeah.
If they could have gone, I always like, what could have, should have been.
Yeah.
If they could have done a few more albums like this, they would have at least been halfway decent. But, the wheels fell off the train, and we just... we'll never know.
Yeah, and there were, we mentioned before, there was supposed to be a DVD from this album from the Canada show, which was a pay-per-view special, but never came to be. They never put it out, and that's too bad, because they had some really good live performances on this album too. There's one incredible bootleg, and I'm sure Mr. Ron will agree with me on this, called Van Halen Rocks the Beer Hall, and that is a tremendous bootleg from this tour, in the 1995 tour. Some really good stuff on there.
There's quite a few soundboards from this tour out there. I don't know if it's that one you're talking about. I remember there's one that's really good, except for the fact that, as usual, Mike's bass is nowhere to be found.
Oh, God.
And it's buried.
Yeah.
And that live DVD that should have come out, but then Sam left the band.
Yeah.
So it was shelved. I remember that was the pay-per-view item that actually made me spring for pay-per-view.
Yeah. And let me tell you something, folks, that's no easy feat.
And you know how notoriously frugal I am.
That's true. Incredible.
So, that was the one that made me bite the bullet and finally spring for pay-per-view.
That's right. That's too bad. But anyway, that wraps up our Balanced Discussion 25th anniversary, and we are on to our interview with Mike Fraser, who was the incredible engineer on the album, and it is followed by our interview with Glen Wexler, who was the Balance cover artist, and he put that whole cover together and the concept, and he shot the cover. So we're going to talk to both of them in celebration of the 25th anniversary of Balance, and it's all coming up next. Take a listen.
I like to read. I like to read books. I read comic books. Whenever I used to see the movies, and go with my pop to the movies when I was very young, I didn't want to be an actor. I wanted to really go to Arabia. So now we have the time to do it.
Need a laugh? Check out the Funny How Comedy Podcast, which focuses on upbeat conversations with legendary comedians. It's free on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out on Facebook at Funny How Comedy Podcast, on Twitter at Funny How Podcast, on Instagram at Funny How Comedy Podcast, or email us at funnyhowcomedypodcast@gmail.com.
Hey everyone, this is Eddie Trunk, and you're listening to Dave and Dave Unchained.
Hi, I'm Jackie Martling. My brand new autobiography, The Joke Man, Bow to Stern, is being released. Go to JackieTheJokeman.com. Great holiday gifts, easy to wrap. I guarantee you are going to love this book.
I really considered myself basically a musician. Basically, I'm an entertainer. I'm song and dance man. There's a lot of storytelling to be told here. There's a lot of magic, a lot of imagery. I'm the one who makes the tiger go away for you, and I'm the one who brings him back out when you least expect it. That's a whole lot more than music. Not better than music, but other than music. I never approached my life as based around music. Edward is a musician. That's what he has based his life around.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest this evening in celebration of Balance's 25th anniversary, which we've themed this entire episode after, is Mike Fraser. He is the mixer of the record who worked with producer Bruce Fairburn. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are you guys tonight?
Awesome, man. We are very excited to have you on. We're fans of your work, and we're pleased to have you here to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Balance.
Wow, I can't believe it's been 25 years already. It feels like it was yesterday.
It's hard to believe, right? So just to start off,
man.
I wanted to ask you if you could, for our listeners, explain your role at the studio and how you worked with Bruce.
Well, this record, I got called in actually at the demo stage, and I met up with Eddie and the boys up at his studio at 5150 in L.A., and that was the first time I met Sammy, too, so that was my introduction to Sammy, and
Sure.
What a great bunch of guys. So we kind of hung out there for a week or two, going through songs and doing demos of songs and whatnot.
Sure.
As we got songs together, they were saying, we're in the process of looking for a producer for this. And I said, I should hook you guys up with Bruce.
Sure.
So I passed on their info to Bruce and put them all together, and then away they went, and they did a record, I guess it was probably a month or two later.
Right.
And, we just all got along so good, and Bruce and I have done many records together. And so they said, okay, Mike, above all, we want you to mix this thing when it's done. So that's sort of how it kind of came together.
How did you initially get involved with them from the demo stage?
You know what? I don't remember because it was 25 years ago.
Right.
But, possibly through my management.
Okay. Sure.
They gave them my contact, or maybe they liked some records I had worked on. I happened to be in LA at the time, working on something else, and they said, hey, come by the studio. We all hung out for a bit, and in this business, it's a lot about personalities, and if you get along and do good hangout with the guys, it's for sure you got to be good at your job, but a lot of it is how easy is this going to be in the studio, because nobody wants to hang out with an idiot or an asshole for weeks on end,
I can imagine.
We all had a great time, and personalities really clicked. So that's quite important. So that's how I got involved.
Absolutely.
So when you were hanging out with the band and getting to know them, what kind of vibe did you get from them?
Well, everybody was sober at that point. I guess Eddie's always had a struggle, but at that point he was sober. I think he might have been sipping on some non-alcoholic beers or whatever, but he was totally straight sober. Sammy was in solid with the band. Everybody was happy when people showed up and we'd work. It was just all a bunch of laughs, fun. So they're really looking forward to this new record they were coming up with because it was all seemed to be clicking again. And, you know, they've had sort of their ups and downs with personnel and whatnot. But, you know, it was all just positive. It was a really good vibe.
Now, the